They always wait for the light. There's the on-air light. Hey, everybody, I'm Shane. I'm here with Bukka Allen and Ian Moore. Love the show tonight, guys. I think Warren Hood's halfway to Austin by now.
Yeah,
He got out of
he
here.
moves quick.
He escaped before
He's like a little leprechaun.
He warned
Pin him
us.
down
He
and-
warned us, though. Yeah.
He did tell us.
he warned you that he was leaving, or that you had to do this when you were
Yeah,
done.
he kind of let us know that he had kids waiting.
Oh, kids.
Well, he'd just been on a little tour too, so his wife was home with the kids, so he had to kind of take daddy duty.
Okay. So let's tell some stories about Warren. I'm just
yeah.
kidding. I'm just playing. So I usually
mother.
I usually start these interviews off about talking about us a little bit, y'all's history with the Duck, and how long you've been playing here. Y'all both kind of been here for. It's been a while now.
Man,
So
how long has it been? I feel like it's funny because I'm so bad with time, but I'm realizing it's been 20 years. That's
Yeah.
That's a long time.
I think I've,
That's like
I've
old
been
enough
here
to
all
have
20.
a family time.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's been 20 years. Bucky, you've been playing here.
Yeah, I
In
mean, I've
different
been playing
forms,
here
different
for
people.
every bit as long, I think, with a lot
Yeah.
of different folks over the years. You know, with Ian, my father,
Mm-hmm.
Jack Ingram, Charlie Robeson. I think I played a show here recently with Shannon McNally. So
Oh, yeah,
I've
that's right,
played here a number of
Yeah.
times over the years, and it's always been just a great go-to spot here in Houston. You know.
Talk in your
Well,
mic,
we
bud.
appreciate it.
Oh.
Yeah, you got to
okay.
talk. This is
What
a
happens
very,
when you put a keyboard player with the mic? He doesn't know what to do.
This is a very professional. This is a very professional show. So I'm gonna get into these hard hitting
Where's my
questions. Y'all
mic-
ready for
where-
this?
where's my
we're
mic
not
clip?
that. We're not that fancy. We're not. We tried everything not to hold microphones, but I was like, just act like I'm Brent Musburger.
Hey, you know Brent Musburger's nephew's my drummer in Seattle.
No, he's not.
Swear to God, Mike Musburger, look him up.
Does he like to bite too?
Oh, I do not know. Maybe.
We won't go there, even though I already did. All right, we'll get into the questions on that note. So, what was the first record you purchased with your own hard-earned cash?
Wow. Okay, hold on.
Mine's easy. You gotta think.
Well, I don't know if it was. I was really lucky because when I was a kid, my dad had an incredible
Right.
record collection. I think the first record that I bought was Street Hassle by Lou Reed.
Okay.
That's one of the first
Which you
records I
still
actually
like your
bought. But
favorite.
still one of my favorite
Yeah.
records. Yeah.
It's a pretty
Kinda
solid
beca-
record. We've
it
had some
beca-
pretty bad
it-
ones.
It kind of, sparked my obsession with the cello
Okay.
early on. But I think that's the first one I bought. But my family had an amazing record collection, so I was exposed to a lot of music
Right.
that most of
Weren't.
my friends were all hanging out at my place listening to records.
Okay.
I think we both had that because we both had like dads that were cooler than any of our friends.
Right.
My first record I ever bought. Well, the funny story. There's two things. I remember at my first house on Westover in Austin when I was about 6. I had a Fisher Price record. You know when you got the little kitty
Of
records.
course.
So I had all the little typical Fisher Price records, and then I had 4 records that I had that I didn't buy these. I'll tell you the record I bought too, but I had 4 records, and they're still like literally 4 of my favorite records in the world. I had Meet the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's, 12 by 5,
Okay.
Sticky Fingers, and then I guess I had an original Buddy Holly. So the first record I bought, I had to clean my dad's van, and my dad's van was nasty. Like it was one of those vans where there's like so much dirt you could grow plants in it
Oh, yeah.
everywhere, and I had to get all the dirt out. It took me a really long time, and I went down to wherever I forget which record store it was. I bought Buddy Holly. I think it was like a greatest hits or
Okay.
something.
So you remember that pretty vividly.
Oh,
Was
yeah.
it LP, tape,
LP,
cassette, LP? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember probably one of the fondest memories of my childhood was with the record collection that we had. One thing that we'd do is we would make comp tapes, off all the records.
Right.
Back then, it was like everyone had records.
You'd make
what a
cassette tapes.
Yeah.
from the record.
we would make compilation cassette tapes, and basically that's how I made money through high school.
Oh, really?
Just sell these compilation tapes
Okay.
to all my
More
friends.
auspicious than the way I made money in high school.
I made them for girls. The
Yeah.
little tapes with all
Oh,
the
yeah, I did.
with all the
I-
power ballads
Yeah.
from Great White
Oh,
and Rat. You know.
I did a lot of those. I didn't use Great White in mine, but I did. A lot of,
No, you didn't. I didn't do very well in high school.
hey man, Great White I think would have probably done really well depending on when you grew up.
The 80s, the right time. So, what was your first concert you wanted to go to? I'm sure y'all being around music all the time. Was there one that you like geeked out on, bought tickets to?
First show I ever saw was Elvis Presley when I was a kid, and I remember kind of having I mean, I really wanted to see it. I was 5,
Yeah.
but I remember just thinking he was kind of this untouchable, amazing figure, you know. And my brother was actually thought he was a monster, so my little brother wouldn't go to the show, but that was the first show. I didn't buy tickets to that, but that was the first.
Was that
show
Lubbock?
No, that was in Fresno, California.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, I literally went to shows almost every night. So I have no idea as far as the first concert that, I mean, the first shows I remember is I remember seeing, I've been trying my whole life. I remember seeing, I don't even know who all, probably Jimmy Vaughn a number of times, and Doug Sahm a lot when I was a kid. The first concert, this is not the first concert I went to, but the one that's a really big deal to me, because I went to a lot of concerts with my dad. My dad had really good taste, so we'd go see tons of cool stuff. I had this band that I really liked when I was 14 called Rank and File.
Oh, yeah.
In Los
Alejandro.
Angeles. And and my dad, it was a really big deal to me because my dad thought they were cool enough that he wanted to go. And so and that was at the Continental Club in Austin. So I took my dad. And the funny thing about that concert is I really wanted to meet the Kinman brothers.
Mm-hmm.
They were like these kind of bouffanty rockabilly guys, and didn't have time for me because there's a bunch of hot Austin chicks.
Right.
So I ended up talking to the bass player all night. That was Alejandro. I met Alejandro when I was 14, and he didn't even live in Austin yet. That's and great. We literally, it's funny because that was a big night for me.
Nice. Okay. I like Rank and File. So I ask all the singer-songwriters this question. What's your favorite riff? Do you have a favorite riff, guitar riff? That was kind of loaded, but does one stick out? I don't know.
I would say the riff to Bitch from Sticky Fingers.
Okay.
I love that song. That's just a fucking rad song.
Nice.
Like my first, I mean, I had it when I was 6, but so cool.
Nobody's giving
Bobby
me that
Keys,
yet.
man.
Yeah.
I did a damn tour with Bobby Keys. First tour I did with Joe Ely, Bobby Keys was in
playing?
the band. Do you remember that?
I do.
I did a tour with fucking Bobby Keys. That was crazy. I remember like going, I would be in the van and go, that's Bobby Keys. And then I'd be on stage, that's Bobby Keys.
Did you ask him a million questions?
Oh man.
Or just not say anything?
He loved to he was like, he loved being Bobby Keys. He loved talking about it. So it was cool.
I did a session with Bobby Keys once in at the studio outside of Austin in Dripping Springs called The Zone. And he had flown in for this guy named Kay Phillips. I don't know if you know his music, but this particular record's fantastic. And Bobby Keys came in and played it, and he pulled out his sax. And I'm not exaggerating. It was engraved, and then also had stones that were embroidered around the entire horn.
Really?
And it was kind of like two skeletons dancing around the horn. I was like, well, where in God's name did you get that? And he goes, well, Keith gave it to me for my 70th birthday, and those weren't rhinestones. Those were rubies, and those were diamonds, and it was unbelievable.
Keith can afford that.
Yeah, I'd imagine if anybody was going to give somebody a saxophone like that.
He's not going to do
And
a
he
rhinestone
played incredible.
saxophone.
He played his ass off. Just incredible.
He's like literally, I'd say him and David Fathead Newman are probably the two greatest rock and roll saxophone players in the world. King Curtis. Well, King Curtis is a little bit more mellow, but I'm just thinking like for that growl, that.
So you are putting a band together. Who's in your band? Living or dead?
If we're putting a band
Yeah.
together.
Who's in it?
I'm pretty happy with this band right here.
Yeah, it's a damn. I was just gonna say. I mean, you know what it reminds me of is my favorite joke when I was a little kid. It's really not that funny because I actually don't. But it was real funny when I was a kid. Was this guy is a guitar player and he's lived a real rough life, and he's done all this stuff you're not supposed to do. So he's pretty much denied the gates of heaven, and he's like cast down to hell, and he's walking down there. He's like looking around. He's like, all this cool stuff. There's like Lamborghinis and barbecue and lots of cool music. And he's going, oh man, this doesn't sound so bad. And then there's this guy with a clipboard, and he says, "Hey, man, you're a guitar player. Hey, we have a jam session every week." It's like John Bonham's the drummer. He's like, "Dude." It's like John Entwistle just came down. This is a long time ago.
Yeah.
John Entwistle plays bass. Jimi Hendrix. It's amazing. This is like it's not as funny anymore because now I like her. But he goes, "There's one catch because it is hell, you know." He goes, Karen Carpenter's the band leader.
Oh, oh wait, I'll count that.
Yeah, no, always got to count. Devil's in the details.
So, in your life, were you just kind of immersed in music, or did you have a certain moment that you saw somebody play, or heard a riff or a lyric that made you like an aha moment to play music for the rest of your life, or was just sort of were you just kind of around it?
Yeah, I think for me growing up, I was just always around it. I didn't even realize the impact that it was having on me when I was a kid. But I mean, I was constantly surrounded by musicians and artists, and didn't really, it's interesting having a kid now. I have a 12-year-old, and
That's what I was thinking about.
kind of watching how they start to kind of realize what their environment is and who the people are. I just did Austin City Limits last week with my dad, and I think for my kid, it's the first time he was like, "Oh,
Well, your
wait a
dad,
minute."
your dad,
Wait a minute.
Grandpa, name checked Bukka's son about that song was hilarious.
Yeah.
They wrote a tune
They
together.
wrote
they
a
did?
song
On
together.
Austin City Limits.
Oh, nice.
They
Yeah,
wrote with crew.
yeah. So it was I've just always been around it. So it's not something that I mean I wanted to play music. Once I started learning how to, and but it's always just been kind of ingrained in my environment. Yeah.
Yeah, same. I mean, that's the funny thing. Like, and it's the same thing I see with my kids. Like, I almost feel like it's like a velvet curse because their whole life they've been around these phenomenal musicians. Like all my friends that just come over, like someone like Buck will just, and they don't think about it because it's just like some dude that's a friend of mine.
Right.
And maybe we go play some music or maybe we have dinner. And my life was kind of the same way. My dad wasn't a musician, but my dad was a huge music fan. He was a Buddhist scholar. All of the, like, we had, well, I mean, like Doug Somm was at my house all the time. I was at Willie's first picnic. First guitar I ever had was one of Stevie's throw-offs because he had a billion guitars. And I just always played, I played fiddle from the time I was 6 years old.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So just kind of same deal, like, just kind of seemed like that was the deal. Like I always said, I kind of felt like the quarterback. You know how like with a straight, when you have a more straight father,
Right.
Dad wants you to be the quarterback. I was kind of like playing guitar.
My dad was a basketball coach, so I know exactly what you're talking
exactly. Well, I was a basketball coach too, and I want my kid's 6'9", and I was like, "Come on, Levi, you could give me a retirement home."
6'9".
Anyhow, no, just just always kind of seemed like it just was the language, and it's funny because you don't think about it when you're a kid. I mean, I played violin, but when I picked up a guitar and I didn't even really know what I was doing, once I got some traction, I realized that my whole life I'd been listening to music, and it was all that stuff was kind of there.
Okay. Nice. So here's the big question tonight. What are we quarantine watching? What are we Hulu and Netflix? And you got any good shows? We all need good shows.
About 500.
Yeah, I know. Got anyone currently?
I've been watching Succession. I kind of like
Okay.
Succession. That's just the most recent. There have been quite a few that I like.
It was funny for me because, Jolene and I do, the nature of being a musician is you come off the road and you're exhausted and you just want to pretty much lay in bed and watch TV. So, I have done that, but I never binge watched. Everybody, I think, did that during the pandemic. But, and I know everyone's talking about it, but just, I've literally watched that Get Back thing 3 times already. And it's 8 hours long. So
I was just talking about that outside with somebody.
28 hours I've watched. Like the part where everyone's like, well, it starts kind of slow and then it heats up. I'm like, no, from the minute one, I'm like, oh my God.
It's interesting.
If you the thing is, this is what I tell people. Because they're like, people be like, well, I don't like the Beatles, which is, first of all, fuck you. And that's a bunch of bullshit. Because if you like the Velvet Underground, you like the Beatles. If you like the fucking Stones, you like the Beatles. It's kind of like saying you don't like Chuck Berry, but you like rock and roll or something. There's certain things. But the thing that's cool is you don't need to like them. You need to like the creative process, and you're literally watching people write songs. The biggest thing for me is watching there's a million, but watching McCartney work out details on songs like "Let It Be" with 50 people around him, and he's going speaking words of blah blah, and I'm like, I could never do that. He's so confident and just.
He's got Yoko sitting right there, and the Yogi's over here. It was kind of
Hare
I
Krishna's in the
yeah.
corner
I've kind of watched the first. I want to get back to it, but
It's so
it's
good.
fascinating. It really was.
Yeah, and Summer of Soul was the other one. I was just talking to a couple of folks about that. Like
Okay.
that scene with Mavis Staples and Mahalia Jackson is pretty much like cereal to eat in the morning to get going.
I just watched that Phil Lynott documentary. It was
Oh,
great.
shit.
It's
What's
on.
that?
It's on Amazon Prime.
Oh man,
You might have to pay for it. It's like, I paid like $2.30.
see, I gotta watch. Yeah, I can't watch those.
it's
But
really good.
Jolene won't. Jolene will not watch music documentaries with me because she feels like her life is a music documentary. So I have to watch them like whenever she.
I love them.
Whenever she goes out, I'll watch a music documentary. So
Yeah.
I love Phil Lynott.
Yeah, it's really, really good. I recommend it. All right, to end this interview, we're gonna do some either ors. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Some people don't want to answer. It doesn't. If you like one, doesn't mean you dislike the other one. Just an opinion. So the first one's the universal: Beatles or Stones. You can say both if you want.
I like them both. I think it's kind of like liking your mom and dad.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer.
It really is.
Well, somebody
It
told
is.
me they did it this way. It's like, okay, what night is it, and what are we doing? So if it's Friday night, it's the Stones. If it's Sunday afternoon, it's the
Well, they
Beatles.
just couldn't have existed without each other. They're just like the two bands that came out of that one time, and
Right.
they're just
I think I was probably more influenced by the Stones because they were coming from more of a blues music that
Right.
I was listening to a lot of blues
Kinda.
in a certain way. I
I
mean, I
think the Beatles were originally coming from. It's what's
we
so
could
funny.
argue about it forever.
That's what's so funny. I mean, they kind of took it just in.
And the
different-
irony is, like, who I was really obsessed with was Billy Preston, and he played with both of them.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, that scene when he shows up and like the Beatles are like dead in the water and they're just fighting, and then Billy Preston shows up and they're all like, "Hey, what's up, Billy?" And then all of a sudden it's all happening.
Oh, back again.
So good.
But Bobby Keys didn't play for the Beatles. Play with the Beatles, or did he? Never played the
Nope.
Beatles.
No,
Dolly or
he would have
Aretha?
made it.
Aretha.
Oh shit.
Dolly or Aretha?
I know. Yeah.
Man, these are tough.
Wow.
I thought these were softball
They're
questions.
supposed to be tough.
Yeah, those are two of my favorite singers in the world.
Well, that's why I put them up against each other because they're the most iconic women probably I can think of as far as they are really different.
Have you seen that documentary with Aretha coming back to James Cleveland's church?
Uh-uh.
That's amazing. Watching Aretha sing gospel music when she.
What is it on?
I don't know. It's
I'll watch
just
it.
look it up. It's like Aretha comes. So her dad Aretha's dad's a preacher, and James Cleveland I think was the organist in his church in Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. And so when Aretha, there was a lot of pressure on her to be a gospel singer.
Right.
And so when she went and became a rock and roll singer, there's I think from what I gathered, I mean there's a. It was when well, let me put it this way: when she comes back to the church, it's real intense.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know, man. I think Dolly Parton's like one of the most important spiritual figures in the world. It's kind of hard to.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to.
So you're
We're both in both.
both
in both.
All right. Elvis or Sinatra?
I'm just gonna laugh at this point.
It's actually.
It doesn't mean you dislike one. It's just
Well, no, I would say for that, I would say Elvis for me. Even though I would say that Sinatra is probably one of my favorite records, and the Wee Wee Hours is one of my favorite records of all
Okay.
time. And I think he's amazing. But when I was a kid, I was literally obsessed with Elvis. I dressed like him. I walked like him. I wanted to be him. I mean, I literally greased my hair. I finally stopped greasing my hair because my mom promised me to get a fancy haircut at a hair salon because all my pillows were ruined. And I think it's funny. I think that people there's a great Peter Guralnick 2-book series on Elvis. 2 books, and they're both about 800 pages. But the reason there's so much about it is because he represented so many things to so many people, and I don't think there's half this stuff. There's no Beatles and Stones without Elvis.
Okay.
You know,
So you're both again, Bukka?
I'm Elvis.
Yeah, I mean, I I think I was probably, like Ian said, I probably was more familiar with Elvis when I was a kid, but as I got older, I started like listening to Sinatra,
Right.
and you know, to me, Sinatra's phrasing is some of the most beautiful phrasing I've ever heard
Right.
in a singer. But as far as the impact of what inspired me to want to play, Elvis had a huge impact. That's the first show I ever saw.
Right.
Him, you know.
It might have been the. You know what's funny? It might have been because I. So I went to 2 arena shows as a kid. One was the Beach Boys with my mom. My mom told at the Irwin Center. My mom told the sound man to turn down. The other was Elvis. I saw Elvis at the Coliseum.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. It's a
I
tough-
never saw Sinatra though.
I never saw
Never.
Sinatra.
I saw Tony Bennett though.
I saw
That
Tony.
was
Did you? Where'd you
pretty
see Tony
amazing.
Bennett?
I saw Tony Bennett at the Harvard Club in Boston in front of 15 people. He did a private show.
Oh wow.
I saw
And it
Tony
was
Bennett at
incredible.
the
It was incredible.
at a AAA convention. Same deal. A room about a third this size, and he was singing with a mic but barely, and his voice was so loud it was insane. And he was, towards the end of his career, he sang his ass off.
Yeah.
So what are they doing with the Irwin Center? Are you sad about that? It's going to be gone? They're going to turn it into a church?
I don't know. I heard they're, I guess they gotta, it's too old timey for the new people.
For the
in
Longhorns.
Austin.
So I know you can have an opinion about the next one, Michael Jackson or Prince. No.
But I'm gonna gauge that one by watching how my kid reacts every
Never
time he
mind.
listens to both of them, and he starts jamming to both of them.
All right.
So it's hard for me to compare. I mean, Prince, I was probably more into. I was buying records of Prince, listening to Prince,
Right.
and really intrigued by him. Michael Jackson was just such a huge star. He was just kind of, I don't know. It's hard to explain.
I'm solid in the Prince camp. I think Michael Jackson's off the wall. I think up to off the wall. I actually don't like Thriller.
No?
Yeah, I don't like it. I mean, it's amazing and it's a huge record, but I
You
don't
can
know.
not like it. It's okay.
I don't like. You know what? His voice started to bug me on Thriller. Like he starts becoming an effect singer where he's like,
Was it the ooh-hoos?
it's
Yeah.
all like these things and like, man, Prince. The thing
You
about
should A B them both with kids and see how they start moving.
yeah.
Because Michael Jackson,
You got to get back to me with this experiment. You can play all these for your kids.
I think Michael Jackson's kind of like a big kid, so he really did. I understand why people like him, and
Hey, yo.
it is interesting to me that of all these people, you got Stevie Wonder and Sly Stone, and all like
Right.
if you're like with the young kids that are into funk, they're all about Michael Jackson. It's like God, it's so weird, but I get why because Michael Jackson's like a big kid. It's just like all his music sounds like kid music. The thing about Prince too is that not just about his records. It's like that dude would be on. I saw Prince 3 times arena shows, and then I saw Prince twice at after shows. And the after shows, people that are Prince fans are typically more fans of the after shows because, like, he would show up and he'd do one night and he'd just do all blues songs,
Right.
and then the next night he'd do all like Parliament funkadelic songs, and then he would do like almost like a country. He's just like there's just no one like him.
Right.
I mean
No, it's true.
his ability, and then the other thing is just like how do you perform on that level, and then do an after show for 3 hours and perform on that level? Like how does anybody do that? That's insane.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he's.
I saw one
unbelievable.
of those after shows early on, like in probably 91. I guess it was about 89, something like that.
I know
It's
a lot
incredible.
About,
It
I
was
know a lot about
incredible.
Prince. I know way too much. I know all the weird. Do you know that? So the first tour, which I didn't get to see, that was before I knew about him. But the first tour, he was so determined to make an impact that he was, wearing stiletto heels every night, and he would jump off like the drum riser and jump like 10 feet, land on the heels, and from that tour is why his
Really?
hips were so messed up. So he was in his whole life from pretty much 21, 22 on, he was in really severe hip pain from that first tour. And so he was constantly struggling with that and trying to get around it. It's amazing to think about.
It is crazy. All those years, which ultimately probably got him addicted and. how everybody.
I think, well, the other thing too, the same thing with like Elvis that people don't realize. I mean, even on our level, like, well, perfect example. I remember we were doing the Today Show, and we were in New York City, and I was like, because it was at that point a really big show for us, and I was going to sing "Satisfied," and so I was like, I don't want to be tired. I'm gonna. They all went out and partied, and I stayed at the hotel, and I remember they all come home and they're all like drunk and they fall asleep.
No,
And I was up all night,
of course.
and because I couldn't sleep because I was too nervous. And one of the things that ends up happening for a lot of people when they're under a lot of pressure is just kind of that up-down cycle. The same thing that happened to Elvis, which is like, gotta go, gotta sleep, gotta go, gotta sleep, gotta go. And I try to do that with like, I take supplements to sleep. Like I take this Calm something or another that I take every night. But when you play music, and you have a really good show, and then you've got 7 hours to sleep. If you go to sleep the second you get home,
Right.
it's really hard. Most people find other ways to do it.
Of course.
Yep. It's just part of the deal.
Yeah. I've got one more for you. Jimmy Dale Gilmore or Joe Ely?
God.
I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that to you.
That's not cool.
Your brother or your sister?
I'm not
Your
going to do
mother
that
or
to
your
you. I'm just
father?
Yeah, this
playing.
is like, what it reminds me of?
It's like,
Anara was we were on tour and we were driving into to San Francisco, and Anara, remember Bryony, that girl used to sing with her?
yeah, yeah.
They were playing the Would You game. That was nasty. It was kind of like me and Chris were like getting grossed out.
What would you say?
Huh?
Who would you pick?
Terry Allen.
Yeah. Oh, that old goat.
That's all I got for you guys. I'll let you off the hook. Thanks for sitting down with me. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye.